All right, folks, Vitek here from Wani, and with us today we have John Wesley. How you doing, brother?
Fantastic. Great to be here.
The new album, Way You'll Never Be, is about to be unleashed in another, 3 to 4 weeks in States, also and worldwide. I'm sure you must be pumped up for the next phase of your career with this album.
I'm very, very excited. It's the things contained in these songs. I've been waiting to share them with people, so I can't wait for people to hear it.
Awesome, that's good to hear. And obviously, the title track has already been out, and I'm sure you would have done some research to figure out what sort of response you're getting from the fans.
The first two tracks we did was By the Light of the Sun, and then the next one was To Outrun the Light, and the response has been surprise. Because I've really defined my direction and taken it to a new place.
Right.
And people are really, really surprised to hear that direction happen, and they're really excited by it. So it's been overwhelming, actually.
Awesome. In fact, I was listening to this again, like just 30 minutes before, we started the conversation. And every time I listen to it, it's like a journey, obviously with you having a great command over the prog genre. But again, you made this album in such a way that it's a perfect combination of the catchy elements and also, let's say the prog rock, how it can be more accessible. And obviously you've kind of translated that progressive mentality onto the modern sound of rock. That kind of a thinking,
Yes.
which is lacking currently in the prog scene. So it was really refreshing to hear an album like this.
Thank you. It's kind of funny that you mentioned how lacking it is, because I know that there are things that I like to listen to that are similar to what I created, and I'll go looking for them and I can't find them. And anything new or newer things that are similar. So it even drove me more to make sure that I was kind of honest to the vision that I had for this.
Okay.
Kind of a hole in the marketplace,
Right, absolutely, to fill in that, because it's like a perfect fusion of prog and also the rock elements. And obviously you've given each of these two different genres that equal proportion, equal precedence in terms of the style which you have explored. And you have Malone on bass, and you have Mark on drums. So with all the guys, the combination of those new elements which you have brought in and the old elements of the prog genre, was that sort of a direction you wanted to take to kind of not just be just a prog rock album, but also take the rock elements and then mix them together and make them sound well balanced?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a rock guitarist at heart. Deep down from my earliest roots, those were the things that always caught me. But then as I grew and I aged, I really became more in touch with the progressive side of things. And it's funny, you mentioned earlier the catchiness of it. It's always been very important for me to make sure I create something worth hearing and catchy, because the favorite progressive rock that I used to listen to, there were always elements that you could sing and hum, like some of the Floyd stuff, some of the Rush stuff. Even the early Yes stuff just used to blow my mind, how melodic it was. And so I wanted to, retain those elements. And, it took me years to kind of pull it all together, but I think I finally found a path to that sort of thing.
Awesome. It's really good to hear. And also the album is really heavy in terms of sound. And obviously, a genre like prog is no stranger to loud guitars. But the way the riffs are written on the album is something really which reminded me of the amount of time you've spent on structuring the arranging the riffs on this album. It reminded me of the modern rock which is present on the radio right now. But again, adding those prog elements which define your sound so well. Was it kind of challenging to arrange these tracks, these riffs in such a way that you kind of form, I could honestly go on and on. I feel like some songs
Sure.
could cross even 10 minutes. It became like
Yeah.
prog epics,
Yeah.
to be precise.
Yeah. Yeah, and believe it or not, it was as an effort not to take them there, but I let each song go where it belonged. If it was supposed to go on for a while, then I let the song kind of live its life. I didn't cut it short or deny the songs what they needed.
Right.
And the other thing is it's real easy to become cliche when you get into doing these kind of things. So it was a real effort to work out the arrangements in a way that they served the song and yet didn't become cliche. Mm-hmm. So it was a lot of hours. A lot of time
spent on that, and obviously your guitar solos on the album are phenomenal. Kind of that spacey kind of a vintage kind of a term I would want to put forward here, because it kind of reminded me of that, especially the title track itself. The way the guitar solos are incorporated into the sound are incredibly effective and just go so well with the entire essence of the album.
Thank you. Again, I don't solo just for soloing's sake, but I do. For me, the instrumental thing has always been like a voice, because when I was coming up as a player, I was just a guitar player, and yet I would write lyrics and melody and someone else would sing them. I never sang them for the first 10 to 12 years of my career. It wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I actually started singing my own lyrics. And so during that time period, I had to develop another way to express myself, and it was through the guitar and the melodies that come out in my soloing. Mm-hmm. So for me, when I'm soloing through a track or combining a vocal in a solo section or whatever, it's another way of expression. It's not doing it just because I want to stick a guitar solo in. And the type of soloing that I do, the melodies, if you really listen to the melodies, somewhere in each of the solos, you're going to hear references to the vocals. You're going to hear references to other melodies in the song, and then you're going to hear where perhaps the vocal melodies could have gone had I chose to put more vocals instead of a guitar place.
Right.
So I tend to solo from a very vocal perspective.
Awesome. And obviously, your voice is unique in itself, and one of the biggest, I would say, the USP is how warmth and that sincerity is there in your voice, and that slightly nasal quality that works so well with your, obviously, the band's alternative rock roots.
Sure.
Was that a sort of challenge for you to kind of push yourself a little more on this album in terms of vocals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I consider it more than anything a growth. In my singing, my writing, and my playing, I'm constantly trying to grow. Mm-hmm. I'm not happy just to sit in one spot and do one thing. Mm-hmm. And I think in the time between the last record and this record, I did grow as a guitarist. I grew as a writer. I grew as an arranger, and I grew as a vocalist. Mm-hmm. And I think the kind of vocals that are happening on this record are a natural outgrowth of the skill that I acquired in that time period.
Right.
So also being able to have access to that skill allowed me to give the songs what the songs were asking for. So,
Absolutely. And
it's all about serving the song.
Indeed, definitely. And it has that organic feeling to it in terms of, I kind of felt like, this album was played live in front of me. I mean, it kind of had that sort of a raw feeling, which pretty much gave such a, the crisp clarity in the production. You could have even retained those fuzzy textures, but it's so well. The production of this album is raw, organic, and goes so well with how the entire album and the entire journey goes. So was that again a sort of a preconceived thought to take this sort of a path instead of having a clean, crisp production like how the modern bands like Periphery or Tesseract do?
Sure. Those bands and those sounds are incredible, but they aren't me. Mm-hmm. And I kind of, I came up from an era when I, had an old 50-watt Marshall cranked into a 4x12 and the speakers were barely hanging on, and there was this savagery that's kind of attached to that. Even in the clean sounds that I like to use, I like to hear something of that, speaker just about to give up the ghost, coming through. And so that raggedness, that jaggedness, is kind of part of what I hear as a guitar tone. The other thing as well is when you say the live feel, that's kind of the way Mark and I arrange the songs. I would write the songs, and then I would sit there with Mark, and we would play and play and play together, and we would play them live. And then once we'd gotten a good arrangement, I would capture that live performance of the guitar, and then he would just sit back and play drums to it over and over and over again until he wouldn't have to think about it. The performance was just there. And so when he actually started doing takes, he wasn't conscious of having to create parts. He was really conscious of trying to create a performance.
Right.
And so that gives you that live feel.
Absolutely. It's really good to hear, John. And obviously you're taking this album on road with your old friends Marillion as well as Wilson. So, would this be the first leg of your tour in North America, which is obviously starting in October?
Sure. October 20th starts in San Francisco with the Marillion guys. And, I have to, due to the musical economy these days and the way things are, and, I have to combine this ability that I have to be able to play in any format. I can play in a full band, I can play in a trio, a duo, or solo. And on these two tours, the touring and the production really isn't going to permit me to do anything more than be a solo act. So I'm going to go out there, play electric guitar. I'm going to do some looping. I might run some tracks. Every song is going to be a different journey. And then when that touring is done, I'm hoping next year that the record will have gained enough momentum to allow me to get out there and do some festivals and some shows with the band. So that's the hope for next year.
Awesome. So you're going as a solo artist on this. Obviously, you'll be playing a few tracks from this album as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. That's really good to hear. The other day, in fact, I was having a chat with Steven since he's coming to India next month.
Sure.
So I was having a chat with him about the good old Porcupine Tree days with all you guys on board, and obviously he's moved on and he's got into the solo side of it. So you've been part of the band. You've been I can't visualize a Porcupine Tree without John Wesley, because you guys are like a family together on stage, and obviously the band is not there anymore. Over the period of time, did you kind of have that feeling that wish Steven could continue it for the fans?
I do. I mean, I want him to be happy. That's number one, I want him to be happy in his career and happy with what he's doing. But, even more than the fans, there was something I loved about that gig. I loved that music. I even loved my role of trying to bring his vision to life.
True.
It was another part of my musicality. And that was a unit and a band and a set of guys that I really enjoyed being with and playing with. So there's that sadness and there's that thing that I miss it. So if I want Steven to bring it back, it's because, there's that emptiness that I feel from not being able to do it,
True.
But on the flip side of that, if bringing that back isn't going to make him happy, then that wouldn't be right either. So,
Indeed.
But there is that nostalgia for me to get out there and just want to do it again, because I loved it. I genuinely loved the whole experience.
True. And if you had to, let's say, describe the sound of the album in just a sentence, what would you say?
Well, I think you summed it up. I mean, if you take the two words, progressive rock, and you put those two words together and you take those terms literally, it's complex music with an extreme rock edge. And there's going to be some jagged guitar in there, and yet the complexity's there. Some of the time signatures are just crazy. Some of the riffs are progressive.
Right.
So I think the best description of this is progressive rock in the literal sense.
Perfect. John, thanks a lot for sparing some time. I appreciate you finding some time to do the interview. I look forward to see you live, and good luck for the release, good luck for the tour, and I hope you have a great time ahead.
Thank you so much, and I hopefully we'll catch you out there sometime. I'd love to get over to India and play for you again.